Good day, everyone. Today we are going to finish our discussion in obligation and contract, the last chapter for obligation, which is the extinguishment. But for now, we are my students in UCC, Bisaes will discuss it to you. Okay, let's start.
John D. Rockefeller once said, "Every right implies a responsibility, every opportunity an obligation, every possession a duty." We, Bisaes 2A, are going to delve into Chapter 4, Extinguishment of Obligations of the Law of Obligation and Contracts. In this discussion, we'll explore the various ways contractual obligations can be extinguished, ensuring responsible fulfillment and a clear understanding of our legal commitments.
Hello everyone, I am Maui Christy Sabando, and I will be discussing the general provisions of extinguishment of obligation, Article 1231. First of all, to better understand what I am going to discuss, let's define what is extinguishment. Based on the Cambridge Dictionary, it is the act of destroying or removing a right, a contract, or a debt, money that is owed to someone else, so that it no longer exists in law. So meaning to say, in Article 1231 of Extinguishment of Obligation, to put out your obligation, here are the 6 you need to know. First, to extinguish your obligation, meron na muna dapat na pre-existing obligations. Kasi nga naman, ano yung obligation extinguish mo kung wala nga namang obligation? So number 1, sinasabi dito, by payment or performance. Payment means hindi lang pera ang pwede mong ibayad. Pwede ka rin gumawa ng iba para lang mapulpil mo yung obligation na kailangan mong ipulpil. Next is, by the loss of the thing due. Siyempre, hindi naman may iwasan yung fortuitous event. Ayon sa batas, if the thing, obligation, consists of the labor, a determinate thing shall be extinguished if the thing is lost or destroyed without the fault of the debtor and before he has incurred in delay. Next is, by the condonation or remission of the debt. It is the gratuitous renunciation by the creditor of his right against the debtor, resulting in the extinguishment of the latter's obligation and its entirely or in the part of the same to the which the renunciation refers. Dapat, it is a form of donation. Next is, by the confusion or merger of the rights of creditor and debtor. Ito yung meeting ng isang tao kung saan siya ang debtor at creditor with respect to the same obligation. For example, the wife has a claim against husband for the support of their child C. Subsequently, wife died, husband also died later. Since si C na lang ang natira, as a heir of wife, the creditor, and also the heir of husband, the debtor, the obligation sued upon is extinguished. Next is by compensation. Kapag yung dalawang tao may utang sa isa't isa at nagkasundo sila na ibayad na lang yung utang nila sa isa't isa, for example, si A may utang na 100 kay B at si B may utang na 70 pesos kay A. At nag-agree si A and B na 30 pesos na lang babayaran ni A kay B since may utang naman si B na 70 pesos. Next is by novation. Novation is the total or partial extinction of an obligation through the creation of a new one which substitutes it. It is the substitution or change of an obligation by another which extinguishes or modifies the first, either by changing its object or principal condition, by or substituting another in place of the debtor, or by subrogating a third person in the rights of the creditor. Other causes of extinguishment of obligations, such as annulment, rescission, fulfillment of resolutory condition, and prescription, are governed elsewhere in this code. In addition sa Article 1231, meron ding causes para ma-extinguish yung obligation. Number 1, death of a party in case the obligation is a personal one. The contract will take effect between the people involved in the contract such as creditor, the debtor, their assigns, and their heirs. Meaning, when one party dies, yung heirs yung magtitake ng position. Pero in cases wherein the contract is not transmissible by its nature, by stipulation, or by provision of law, then that is the time where death can be a mode to extinguish an obligation. Number 2, mutual desistance or withdrawal. Dito naman pumapasok yung meeting of the minds. When two parties agree for disagreement, then it will cause extinguishments. Number 3, arrival of resolutory period. Sa Article 1193, nabanggit siya na obligation with a resolutory period take effect at once but terminate upon arrival of the day certain. A day certain is understood to be that which must necessarily come, although it may not be known when. If the uncertainty consists in whether the day will come or not, the obligation is conditional, and it shall be regulated by the rules of the preceding section. Number 4, compromise. When we say compromise, ito po yung agreement or a settlement of a dispute that is reached by each side making concessions. For example, A bound himself to give B a parcel of land. They, however, agreed and entered into a compromise that A would instead give half of the promised land. A's obligation to completely deliver the parcel of land had already been extinguished. Number 5, impossibility of fulfillment. Example dito ay si A bound siya mag-deliver ng 2 sacks of brown rice. Ang kaso, illegal pala lahat ng ganong rice, kaya hinuli at kinuha yung rice niya. Kaya dito pumapasok yung impossibility of fulfillment. And lastly, number 6, happening of a fortuitous event. Syempre, hindi naman talaga maiiwasan na magkaroon ng mga hindi naasahan or hindi sinasadyang pangyayari. Kaya because of that, the obligation will be extinguished. Based on Castan, there's 2 modes of extinguishment of obligations. It is classified as voluntary and involuntary. In involuntary, there are 3 classification. Number 1, performance, substitution, and by release of agreement. In performance, of course, you should voluntarily pay and hand over the thing. Sa substitution naman, meron tayong dasyon and pago, and kanina nabanggitan natin kung ano innovation. And lastly, by release of agreement. Dito sa by release of agreement, meron siyang dalawang agreement. Number 1, agreement subsequent to the constitution of the obligation. And number 2, agreement simultaneous to the constitution of the obligation. Sa agreement subsequent to the constitution of the obligation, meron siyang 3. A is mutual waiver, B is unilateral waiver, and lastly, remission. Sa agreement simultaneous to the constitution of obligation naman, meron siyang 2, which is A, resolutory condition, and B, extinctive period. Next mode of extinguishment is involuntary. Involuntary consists of 3, A, by reason of the subject, B, by reason of the object, C, by failure of exercise. Sa naman, by reason of the subject, meron siyang confusion and death of the contracting parties in the cases where the obligations are personal. Sa by reason of the object naman, loss of the thing due or impossibility of performance. And lastly, sa by failure to exercise, meron siyang extinctive prescription.
My name is Jamaica Arcarihutan, and I'm going to discuss Section 1, Payment or Performance of Extinguishment of Obligations. For Article 1239, in obligations to give, payment made by one who does not have the disposal of the thing due and capacity to alienate, it shall not be valid without prejudice to the provisions of Article 1427 under the title on natural obligations. This article basically means that if you are obligated to give something to someone, like paying a debt or returning borrowed goods, the payment is not valid if the person giving it to you doesn't actually own the thing and doesn't have the legal right to sell it. Otherwise, the recipient is not considered to have truly received the item. For the capacity to alienate, the person giving something must also be legally able to make deals like contracts and transfer of ownership. And this means that they are a minor or someone declared unfit to handle their affairs by court. So for Article 1240 naman, payment shall be made to the person in whose favor the obligation has been constituted or his successor in his interest or any person authorized to receive it. And who are the person to whom payment must be made? First, the creditor, because you gotta give it to the person or someone you actually owe it to. Syempre, pag nangutang ka, kailangan mong ibigay ito dun sa pinag-utangan mo talaga. And next is successor in interest. If the person you owed pass away or the situation changed somehow, you might owe it to to their heir or someone who took their place, like their child or other relatives. And lastly, person authorized to receive the payment. The person you owe can give someone else the right to collect the money for them, like a lawyer or a collection agency. The real creditor, pwede siyang magbigay ng consent sa another third person para tumanggap ng bayad sa'yo. And who is the real creditor when things change? This article says that you need to pay the person who is owed the money at the time of payment and not necessarily the one you owed it originally. Example, you owe money to Miguel, but then he sells the debt to collection agency. Now, the collection agency is now your new creditor and sa kanila ka na magbabayad. What happens if you accidentally pay the wrong person? What happens if you accidentally pay the wrong person? Even if you accidentally paid the wrong person and did everything in good faith, you might still be responsible for the debt. And the real creditor can still come after you for the money unless they were somehow negligent themselves. And for Article 1241, payment to a person who is incapacitated to administer his property shall be valid if he has got the thing delivered or insofar as the payment has been beneficial to him. Payment made to a third person shall also be valid insofar as it has redounded to the benefit of the creditor, and such benefit to the creditor need to be proved in the following cases. If after the payment, the third person acquires the creditor's rights, or second, if the creditor ratifies the payment to the third person, and lastly, if by the creditor's conduct, the debtor has been led to believe that the third person had authority to receive the payment. This article basically means the third party gains the creditor rights later, like inheriting the debt. This means that even though you paid the wrong person, the person you actually owe eventually gets the money. And next, the creditor approves the payment to the person. And this basically means if the person you owe money to says it's okay to pay someone else, or like they're giving the consent, then the payment is valid. Next, the third is the creditor actions made you believe the third person could receive the payment. For example, maybe the creditor told you to pay their friend or agent. In this case, you're not responsible if the friend or agent doesn't give the money to the creditor. And for Article 1242, payment made in good faith to any person in possession of the credit shall release the debtor. This article says that if you owe money to someone, the creditor, you pay someone else who has the bill or other proof of the debt, like a receipt. Well, then you are no longer responsible for the debt, and you basically assume that the person with the bill has a creditor in good faith. In other words, if you get a bill and pay it, you are good to go. And even if it turns out you accidentally paid the wrong person, as long as you acted in good faith and naniwala ka na yung person na binayaran mo had the right to collect the debt, you are off the hook and the payment is valid. And for the 1243, payment made to the creditor by the debtor after the latter has been judicially ordered to retain the debt shall not be valid. It means there are situations where a court might order you to hold on to money that you owe to someone, which is the debtor, because there's a dispute about who is the real creditor. And if this happens, paying the debtor anyway is not valid. Imagine you owe someone money, but another person claims that they are the real creditor and sues the debtor in court. And to prevent the confusion and ensure that money goes to the rightful person, the court might order you to hold onto the money until the lawsuit is settled. But if you ignore the court order and pay the debtor anyway, the payment is not valid. And for Article 1244 naman, the debtor of a thing cannot compel the creditor to receive a different one, although the latter may be one of the same values as or more valuable than which is due. An obligation to do or not to do an act or forbearance cannot be substituted by another act or forbearance against the obliger's will. Imagine you borrowed a specific bike from your friend. This article says that when you pay your debt, you can just give your friend a different bike. Even if it's nicer or mas mahalaga yun or mas mataas yung value nun, your friend gets to decide kung gusto ba nila yun or gusto nila yung exact bike na nilent niya sa'yo. And this also applies to all kinds of obligation, and not just things or specific things or determinate things. Because if you promise, for example, if you promise to help your neighbor paint their fence, you can't offer to mow their lawn instead, unless they are agree to the switch. And the person you owe to something, the creditor, has the right to get what they were promised. This article basically means debtors can force a different repayment on creditors, and this applies to both objects and actions. And also, the creditor has the right to receive what was originally agreed upon. And for Article 1245 naman, the shown in payment whereby property is alienated to the creditor in satisfaction of a debt in money shall be governed by the law of sales. Let's say you owe someone money, but you might not have the cash available. This article introduces the concept of the shown in payment. It basically means giving the creditor a property instead of the money to settle your debt. It's like a trade where you give them something they can hopefully sell or use, or in return, your debt is considered paid. But the law of sales also applies here, wherein it's like you're selling the item to the creditor, and the creditor pays for it by reducing your debt to zero, or whatever the amount the item is. So basically, the shown in payment allows you to settle a debt with property instead of money. And the rules for buying and selling things apply to this article. And you also can't just give them anything. It must be something valuable and you are legally owned, or kailangan legally own mo yung bagay na yon, and you have the right to transfer the property. For the Article 1246 naman, and the obligation consists in the delivery of an indeterminate or generic thing whose quality and circumstances have not been stated, the creditor cannot demand a thing of superior quality, neither can a debtor deliver a thing of inferior quality. The purpose of the obligation and other circumstances shall be taken into consideration. Let's say you promise your friend a bag of rice. This article applies when the exact brand or type of rice wasn't mentioned. And you can't give them fancy, super expensive rice, and they can't give you the cheapest and low quality rice naman. This article is all about fairness, and this article says both you, the debtor, and your friend, creditor, need to consider the purpose of the obligation and the situation. This applies when you owe something generic like a type of object, not a specific one, or neither extreme quality is acceptable. You both need to consider what the rice is for and what's the reasonable under the circumstances. Let's have another example. You owe a restaurant a delivery of cooking oil. You can give them the most expensive olive oil, and the standard vegetable oil would be reasonable already. So, for Article 1247, unless it is otherwise stipulated, the extrajudicial expenses required by the payment shall be for the account of the debtor. With regard to the judicial costs, the rules of court shall govern. This article deals with who pays the extra costs associated with settling a debt. We have here extrajudicial expenses. This is the out of court costs, or kung saan related to sa mga gastos na labas sa court. These are any costs you, debtor, incur when paying your debt outside of the court. For example, notary fees, bank transfer fees, and etc. Generally, the debtor pays these extrajudicial expenses because settling the debt benefits you the most. However, there are exceptions. You and the creditor can agree then beforehand who pays this cost. Next is yung judicial cost. Ito naman yung mga court costs or sa loob ng or related sa court na gastos. These are the costs that are associated with lawsuits over the debt collection. And the rule of court determine kung sino yung magbabayad nito. Typically, kung sino yung natalo sa lawsuit, siya yung magbabayad ng cost na yon. In some cases then, the judge might decide to split the cost or have one party pay all of them, depending sa situation. And also, the government is generally exempt from paying court costs unless a specific law says otherwise. For Article 1248 naman, unless there is an express stipulation to that effect, the creditor cannot be compelled partially to receive the prestation in which the obligation consists. Neither may the debtor be required to make partial payments. However, when the debt is in part liquidated and in part unliquidated, the creditor may demand and the debtor may effect the payment of the former without waiting for the liquidation of the latter. Agreed upon. We have here the agreed upon. If you and the creditor agree beforehand that you can pay in parts, like installment, then that is valid payment. Another is part liquidated and part unliquidated. If your debt has a fixed amount, which is the unliquidated, and an unknown amount, which is unliquidated, the creditor can demand payment for the fixed amount right away. For the different terms naman, if yung debt mo has a different parts with different due dates or condition, you can pay those parts separately. Next, unreasonable expectation. If yung pagbabayad ng buong debt at once is unreasonable, like a huge loan, partial payments might be allowed. Abuse of right or good faith. If the creditor refusing partial payments seems unfair or unreasonable, a judge might allow it. So for Article 1249 naman, the payment of debts in money shall be made in the currency stipulated, and if it's not possible to deliver such currency, then in the currency which is legal tender in the Philippines, the delivery of promissory notes payable to order or bills of exchange or other mercantile documents shall produce the effect of payment only when they have been cashed or when through the fault of the creditor they have been impaired. In the meantime, the action derived from the original obligation shall be held in the abeyance. This Article 1249 says here that if you owe someone money, this article sets out the rules for what kind of money you can use to pay them back. There are two main points here. First, pay in the agreed currency. If you borrow pesos, you generally need to pay them back in pesos. And legal tender man, if no currency is specified. If no specific currency was agreed upon, then pwede ka magbayad with any type of money that's officially recognized in the Philippines. And this could be pesos, coins, or even potentially central bank-issued digital currency in the future. Now, sabihin natin you don't have cash on hand, but you offer a check or some other promise to pay later, like a promissory note. This article says that doesn't count as complete payment until the check is cashed or the promise is fulfilled. Although if the creditor messes up and loses the check or promissory note through their own fault, then that might count as payment. And for Article 1250 naman, in case ordinary inflation or depletion of the currency stipulated should supervene, the value of the currency at the time of the establishment of the obligation shall be basis of payment unless there is an agreement to the contrary. This article deals with the situations where the value of the Philippine peso drastically changes or after a contract is made. Extreme inflation kung saan increase in prices and decreases in the value of money. Extreme deflation naman, ito yung opposite of inflation wherein prices go down but the value of money goes up. But there are three requirements. Official declaration, there must be an official announcement from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas stating extraordinary inflation or deflation. Next, contractual obligation. The situation must involve a contract or an agreement between parties. And lastly, agreement to consider inflation and deflation. The contract must mention that the effects of extraordinary inflation or deflation will be considered. And the value of the peso at the time of contract was made becomes the basis for payment. And this is to adjust the expected big change in peso's value. For example, you borrow 5,000 from your friend and agreeing to pay it back in 5 years. And due to inflation, 5,000 becomes worth much less after 5 years. And if there's an extraordinary inflation, and your contract mentioned inflation adjustments, you might have to pay back more than 5,000, depending on the peso's value at the time. And for Article 1251 naman, payment shall be made in the place designated in the obligation, there being no express stipulation, and if the undertaking is to deliver a determinate thing, the payment shall be made however the thing might be at the moment of the obligation was constituted. In other cases, the place of payment shall be the domicile of the debtor. Let's say you borrowed a bike from a friend who live across the town. This article says that generally, you return the bike to their place, unless you both agreed in a different spot beforehand. There are two main scenarios here wherein place specified in the agreement. If you borrowed money and the loan agreement says you need to pay it back at a specific bank, then that's the place to go. Next, no specified place and determinative. If there is no specific place mentioned and you owe someone a specific item like a bike, you need to return it to the location it was in when you borrowed it. In the third option naman, though if you owe someone money but there's no specific place mentioned and it's also not a specific item, then you can just generally pay them at their home, which is the domicile. The difference of the domicile and the residence naman, domicile is basically a person's permanent home, where the place they live with the intention of staying long term, while the residence naman is where just someone lives and not necessarily where they plan to stay forever. And that is all for section 1, payment or performance.
There are three subsections that we will be discussing. First, application of payments. Second, payment by session. Third, tender of payment and consignation. So, first we will be discussing about the first subsections, which is the application of payment. So, under Article 1252, application of payment is the designation of the debt to which should be applied the payment made by the debtor who has various debt of the same kind in favor of one and the same creditor, which means that the application of payment involves several debts but same debtor and same creditor. And dito may mga instances din na yung debtor meron na siyang pambayad pero yung pambayad niya hindi sapat para mabayaran lahat ng utang niya. So there are requisites for application of payments. So first, there must be one debtor and one creditor. Second, there must be two or more debts. Third, debt must be of the same kind. Fourth, the debt to which payment made by the debtor has been applied must be due. And fifth, the payment made must not be sufficient to cover all the debts. Para mas maintindihan natin ng maayos, let's have an example. D owes C as follows. A. 10,000 payable on May 5. B. 11,000 payable on May 10. C. Gave A specific watch. D. 12,000 payable on May 12. E. 15,000 payable on May 20. Ito yung mga utang ni D. So, assuming on May 15, D is ready to pay but only up to 20,000. Since May 15, ready na siya magbayad, yung debt letter A hanggang D lang yung kasama kasi ayun lang yung due. And yung letter E, hindi na natin siya pwedeng applyan ng payment kasi nga hindi pa siya due. And dito, titignan din natin kung ano yung ipambabayad niya. So, in this example is pera. So, ang sabi kanina sa requisite of application of payment, dapat same kind. So, yung letter C na give a specific watch, hindi na siya pasok kasi nga hindi siya same kind. Bali, ang natira na lang is yung letter A, B, and C. So, dito na natin i-apply yung rules on application of payments. So, paano? As a general rule, ang pwedeng mag-apply ng payment ay si debtor. Ibig sabihin, yung 20,000 pwede niyang i-apply kahit saan dyan sa A, B, and C. Pero what if si debtor hindi niya in-apply? Bali yung 20,000, binigay niya na lang ng buo kay creditor. So, ang pwede nang mag-apply ay si creditor. Siya na yung bahala kung saan niya gusto. Pero what if uli, hindi rin in-apply ni creditor, tinanggap niya lang. So, saan na mag-a-apply yung payment? So, mag-a-apply doon sa pinaka-burdensome na utang na in this example is yung letter C. Kasi siya yung may most onerous. So, yun lang yung about sa application of payment. So, we will proceed now to the subsection 2, which is the payment by session. According to Article 1255, payment by session is another special form of payment. It is the assignment of all the properties of the debtor of the benefit of his creditors in order that the latter may sell the same and apply the proceeds thereof to the satisfaction of their credit. Para mas lalo nating maintindihan yung payment by session, i-differentiate natin ito sa dash-on in payment. First, yung payment by session, pwede lang siyang gawin kapag insolvent yung debtor. While sa dash-on in payment naman, it doesn't matter kung insolvent o hindi yung debtor. Second, sa payment by session, there must be two or more creditors. While sa dash-on in payment naman, yung plurality ng creditors, hindi siya nire-required. Third, sa payment by session, lahat ng properties mo affected dahil lahat yon ay ipambabayad mo. While sa dash-on in payment naman, specific property lang. Fourth, sa payment by session, hindi porket binayad ng debtor yung property niya, hindi ibig sabihin, ibibigay niya na yung property na yon sa creditor. Ang binibigay lang ng debtor ay yung right to sell. While sa dash-on in payment naman, yung ownership mapapas na sa creditor. Lastly, sa payment by session, it is not an act of novation. While sa dash-on in payment naman, it is an act of novation. So now we will proceed to subsection 3, which is the tender of payment and consignation. According to Article 1256, tender of payment is the act on the part of debtor of offering to the creditor the thing or amount due. In this section, tender of payment is valid. Magkakaroon lang ng valid tender of payment if you are tendering a legal tender. So, ano nga ba itong legal tender? Yung legal tender, ito yung bills and coins issued by Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. And therefore, kapag valid na yung tender of payment mo, pwede na mag-proceed sa consignation. And consignation is the act of depositing the thing or amount due with the proper court when the creditor does not desire or cannot receive it after complying with the formalities required by the law. Dito, magkasama lagi yung tender of payment and consignation. Generally, hindi pwedeng magkaroon ng consignation kapag wala pang valid tender of payment. Pero may mga exemption based on Article 1256. So, ayan yung mga exemption. So, ibig sabihin, hindi kailangan ng tender of payment sa mga cases na ito. Bali, pwede ka agad mag-proceed sa consignation. Siyempre, may mga requisite din for tender of payment and consignation. First requisite is kapag di pa due, hindi pa valid yung tender of payment na ginagawa mo. Second, nag-tender of payment na pero di tinanggap ng creditor without a valid cause. Third, dapat magbigay ka ng notice sa interested person kasi kapag hindi mo yun ginawa, hindi magiging valid yung gagawin mong consignation. Fourth, syempre dapat may actual consignation of the sum due. And lastly, subsequent notice of consignation made to the interested parties. Finally, that concludes the 3 subsections. We will now go on to the next topic which will be discussed by the next discussant.
So, before we discuss the Article 1262, klaruhin lang natin para naman on the same page tayo. Loss under the section includes the impossibility of performance. Hindi lang siya yung ordinary loss na nawala, it includes an obligation to do or yung sa mga personal obligations. Loss includes the impossibility of performance. Masasabi nating there is loss when the object perishes or it goes out of commerce or if it disappears in such a way that its existence is unknown or it cannot be recovered. Tapos merong impossibility of performance if kapag merong physical impossibility and legal impossibility. So, Article 1262, hindi ko na siya babasahin, i-post nyo na lang yung video para kayo na magbasa. So, dito sa Article 1262, sabi rito, if it involves a specific or determinate thing, the obligation is extinguished daw. If nawala yung specific thing, obligation should be extinguished. But take note na dapat without the fault of the debtor, and bago pa man magkaroon ng delay. But Article 1262 also give an exceptions na kapag yung specific thing nawala, hindi na ma-extinguish if sinabi ng batas or if nasa contract mismo ng parties, and when the nature of the obligation requires the assumption of risk. But in general rule, loss of specific thing is ma-extinguish ang obligation. So, dito naman sa Article 1263, if yung generic thing nawala, magiging liable pa rin. Kasi hindi siya nag-extinguish ng obligation under the principle genus never perishes. But take note na meron din naman siyang exceptions. Have you heard about the concept of the limited generic? So, ganito siya. If Andrew obliged himself to deliver to Pam 100 sacks of rice from December 2020 harvest, the 100 sacks of rice from December 2020 harvest is the limited thing. Ang epekto nito if nagkaroon ng fortuitous event which completely destroyed the supposedly harvest ni Andrew, the obligation is totally extinguished. Pero if yung example lang is Andrew obliged himself to deliver 100 sacks of rice to Pam and ganyan lang and biglang nagkaroon ng bagyo, kaya nagkaroon ng loss, liable pa rin ba si Andrew? The answer is yes. Applying the Article 1263 in an obligation to deliver a generic thing, the loss or destruction of anything of the same kind does not extinguish the obligation. Article 1264. So this article talks about the effect of partial loss of a specific thing, and it answers the question, when is a partial loss considered as total loss? May mga instances kasi na yung partial loss, although partial lang, hindi naman siya completely nawala, pero yung loss is so significant na pwede siyang ma-considered as total loss. Example, loss of the body of ballpen. So, ang matitira na lang is yung cover ng ballpen. Considered siya as total loss. So, meron na naman tayong cases ng presumption under the law. So, Article 1265, ang sabi niya, there is a presumption that lost in the possession of the debtor, it shall be presumed that the loss was due to his fault. Kapag yung bagay ay nawala at nasa kamay pa ng debtor or nasa kanya ang possession, the debtor is presumed to be at fault. Pwede pa rin naman ma-overcome yung presumption. Paano? By providing proofs na hindi ka naman talaga at fault. Meron lang tayong legal presumption. It gives a debtor another duty to prove na hindi naman siya at fault. This presumption does not apply in case of earthquake, flood, storm, or other natural calamity. So example, MJ borrowed a car from Mia and habang nakay MJ ang car, ito ay nawala. So MJ is presumed at fault. Hindi niya pwedeng basta-basta na lang sabihin kay Mia na nawala niya yung car without his fault. So dahil without his fault, ma-extinguish na yung obligation. No, that is not enough to extinguish the obligation. He is presumed at fault, so he is liable unless makapagbigay siya ng proof to show na hindi siya at fault. Article 1266. So, it talks about the effects of loss or impossibility of performance in personal obligations. So, sabi dito, the debtor in obligations to do shall also be released when the prestation becomes legally or physically impossible. So, we have legal impossibility and physical impossibility. And yung last phrase na napaka-importante, without the fault of the obligor. Obviously, dapat walang fault si debtor para ma-extinguish yung obligation. Impossibility must exist after the constitution of the obligation. Kasi if before, then there is really no obligation to speak of in the first place. Walang obligation na ma-extinguish. If impossible na siya bago pa man magkaroon ng obligation. Example, Gerald obliged himself to construct a commercial building for Lala. And 1 week after, namatay si Gerald. So he can no longer build a constructive commercial building for Lala. So the obligation of Gerald has become physically impossible. Therefore, Gerald released from his obligation. So Article 1267, this article is another exception to obligatory force of a contract. Kasi when the service has become so difficult daw as to be manifestly beyond the contemplation of the both parties, the court is authorized to release the obligor in whole or in part. Example, if may duty ka to construct a road and biglang lumindol, impossible pa yung construction but very dangerous na. It is something na not contemplated by both parties na mangyari. So the court is authorized to release the obligor. Article 1268. So ito yung epekto ng laws in criminal offenses. Ang sabi rito, if yung isang bagay is proceeds ng isang criminal offense, hindi ma-exempt si debtor from his liability. Whatever may be the cause for the loss, even without his fault. Liable pa rin si debtor, may fault man siya o wala. Take note also the exception unless the thing having been offered by him to the person who should have received it, the latter refused without justification to accept it. In Article 1269, ito naman, it is about the right of the creditor to proceed against a third person responsible from the loss. There is no need an assignment kay debtor. So yung right ni debtor against third person is maa-acquire ni creditor by operation of law by the virtue of Article 1269. Article 1270, dito naman ibig sabihin dito yung pagpapatawad ng utang. Ito yung walang kapalit at hindi mo na pwedeng habulin pa yung utang. Walang kapalit at hindi tayo required na tumanggap ng generosity ng ibang tao. Dapat may acceptance para maging valid. Yung acceptance na yon ay pwedeng expressly or impliedly. Pag expressly, sasabihin mo lang thank you dahil tinatanggap ko yung binigay mo. Pag impliedly naman, hindi ka naman nagsalita. Kunwari, yung inabot sa yung pagkain ay in-start mo ng kainin. Ibig sabihin, yung binigay sa yung pagkain ay bukal sa loob mong tanggapin. Kahit hindi ka magsalita, given na yun na tinatanggap mo. Meron ditong essential requisites of remission. It must be gratuitous, dapat walang kapalit, freely or voluntarily. Pangalawa, it must be accepted by the obligor. Yun nga yung hindi tayo required na tumanggap ng generosity ng ibang tao. Dapat may acceptance para maging valid. Next naman is the parties have capacity. Dapat ang parehong party ay may kakayahan para masatisfy ang mga elements para pumasok sa isang kontrata. Pang-apat, it must not be inefficacious. Sabi nga diba, no one can give more than what which he can give by will. Dapat yung ibibigay mo ay hindi sobra-sobra sa kakayahan mo. Otherwise, kapag excessive or inefficacious, pwede itong i-reduce ng court. Article 1271. It is another presumption. Ang sabi, ito nga ang presumption na in case document of indebtedness is voluntarily delivered by the creditor. Actually, yung tanong dito is kung anong effect ng deliver ni debtor kay creditor ng mga document which is the evidence ng mga utang nito. So, according to Article 1271, ang pag-deliver ni debtor kay creditor ng mga document which is the evidence ng mga utang nito creates the presumption of implied remission. Take note ha na voluntary niyang ginawa yung pag-deliver ng document. And since presumption lang, pwede niya rin itong ma-overcome. Basta may proof siya na hindi niya niremit or walang condonation ng credit. Kung si Article 1271 is about the presumption na mayroong relation or implied relation pag voluntarily dineliver ni creditor yung private documents, evidence ni in payment, dito naman sa Article 1272 is yung presumption ng voluntary delivery. So kapag daw yung private document in which the debt appears is nasa possession na ni debtor, mayroong presumption na voluntary dineliver sa kanya.
So, in Article 1273, the renunciation of the principal debt shall extinguish the accessory obligation, but the waiver of the latter shall leave the former in force. Dito sa Article 1273 ay malalaman natin kung ano nga ba ang epekto ng renunciation ng principal debt at ng accessory obligation. Kapag ang renunciation ba ay si principal obligation, ma-extinguish rin ba nito si accessory obligation? Ito yung tinatawag na accessory follows the principal. So, kapag nagkaroon ng renunciation sa principal obligation, since sabi nga 'di ba, accessory follows the principal, it means mawawala or mare-renounce mo na rin si accessory obligation. Paano kung baliktarin naman natin, si accessory obligation naman yung mare-renounce? Yan, sabi 'di ba, it shall leave the former in force, meaning the principal obligation will still exist even without the accessory obligations. So, let me give you an example para mas maintindihan natin kung ano nga ba talaga ang Article 1273. Si Andrew ay nangutang kay Antoinette ng nagkakahalagang 100,000 pesos and Pamela is the guarantor. Dito ay yung principal debt ay yung 100,000 and yung accessory obligation is the obligation of Pamela as the guarantor. Kapag nag-renounce si Antoinette sa utang ni Andrew na 100,000, mawawala rin yung obligation ni Pamela as a guarantor. Pero, if guarantee lang naman ni Pamela yung nirenounce ni Antoinette, syempre, yung obligation lang naman ni Pamela yung ma-extinguished. And the obligation of Andrew will still remain in force. Sa madaling salita, may utang pa rin si Andrew na 100,000 kay Antoinette. Yeah. So, for the next article is Article 1274. It is presumed that the accessory obligation of pledge has been remitted when the thing pledged after it's delivered to the creditor is found in the possession of the debtor or of a third person who owns the thing. So, first is, ano nga ba yung pledge? Pledge is like a security na mababayaran mo yung obligation mo. Parang, sanla, ganyan. Example, nangutang ka ng 10,000. So, para may guarantee si creditor na mababayaran mo yon is sinangla mo yung alahas mo. So, bali, yung alahas mo, yung magiging guarantee na makakapagbayad ka ng inutang mo na 10,000. So, kapag yung bagay na sinangla ni debtor kay creditor, meaning is dineliver mo na yung alahas or what kay creditor as a security dun sa loan mo, later on is mababalik naman yun sa debtor or kung sino man yung may-ari ng bagay na yon. Sabi kasi, there is a presumption na yung pledge has been remitted. For example, si Andrew nangutang ng 100,000 kay Antoinette and so as a security sa kanyang pagbayad, pinledge niya yung kanyang alahas na worth 100,000 din. And if later on nakita natin na kay Andrew na ulit yung alahas niya, meaning there is a presumption na niremit na ni Antoinette yung accessory obligation na pledge. Take note that only the accessory obligation of pledge yung presumed remitted and hindi kasama ang principal obligation. Dahil hindi nga kasama si principal obligation na 100,000, kailangan pa ring bayaran ni Andrew si Antoinette, only that this time is mawawala na yung security. No more pledge which will become pure utang na lang. So, for Section 4, which is the extinguishment of obligation, that is confusion or merger of rights. Article 1275. The obligation is extinguished from the time the characters of creditors and debtors are merged in the same person. Confusion is the meeting in one person or the qualities of creditors and debtors with respect to the same obligation. The law treats confusion or merger kasi as the mode of extinguishment of obligation. Kasi 'di ba parang it would be absurd nga kasi hindi mo naman makukuha yung bayad mo sa sarili mo. Kasi parang naging siya in his person became the debtor and creditor at the same time. Next is punta naman tayo sa requisites of confusion. For a valid confusion or merger to take place, it is necessary that first it must take place between the creditors and the principal debtor. Number 2, it must be complete and definite. Number 3, the confusion must be total or as regards the entire obligation. Let's take an example para maintindihan natin ng mabuti. Andrew owes Antoinette 100,000. Nag-execute ng negotiable instrument which is the promissory note in favor of Antoinette. And now, si Antoinette in-endorse niya yung promissory note niya kay Pamela. And then later on, si Pamela is bumili siya ng mga goods sa tindahan ni Andrew. Instead of paying cash, in-endorse niya na lang kay Andrew yung promissory note na galing kay Antoinette. So, in this case, Andrew owes himself. In short, Andrew becomes a debtor and a creditor at the same time. So, in this example, Andrew owes himself and so, consequently, the obligation is extinguished by confusion or merger. Article 1276. Merger which takes place in the person of the principal debtor or creditor benefits the guarantor. Confusion which takes place in the person or any of the latter does not extinguish the obligation. This article talks about the effects of merger on guarantors. Again, di ba, accessory follows the principal. Meaning, kapag nagkaroon ng merger sa principal obligation, yung principal obligation also extinguished. Yan yung sinasabi dito sa Article 1276. Kasi si guarantee is actually an accessory obligation. Pero take note din dito, in second sentence, sabi dito, confusion which take place in the person or any of the latter does not extinguish the obligation. So, pag yung merger or confusion takes place in the person dun sa ating accessory obligation, like yung kay guarantor, sabi it does not extinguish the obligation. Example, Andrew owes Antoinette 100,000 and si Pamela yung guarantor. Si Antoinette, inassign niya yung credit kay Maymay. Tapos later on, si Maymay, inassign niya rin ulit papunta kay Andrew. Dito, the obligation was extinguished and si Pamela was released na from her obligation as the guarantor. Why? Kasi doon sa principal obligation talaga nagkaroon ng merger. Pero paano kung nangyari is Andrew owes Antoinette 100,000 guaranteed by Pamela pa rin and then Antoinette assign his credit kay Maymay. Tapos itong si Maymay, inassign niya kay Pamela doon sa guarantor. So, in this scenario, yung contract of guarantee ang na-extinguish pero hindi kasama yung principal obligation or yung obligation ni Andrew to pay 100,000 kay Antoinette. Article 1277 talks about the merger in joint obligation naman. Example, Andrew and Antoinette jointly owes Pamela 100k evidenced by a promissory note. So, if Pamela endorsed the promissory note to Maymay and si Maymay endorsed it again to Antoinette, so, dito is yung share lang ni Antoinette yung may extinguished. Pero yung share ni Andrew, andun pa rin because of the joint obligation. As to Andrew, there is no confusion or merger. So, Andrew would still be liable for 50,000. And another mode of extinguishment of obligation is the compensation. Article 1278. Compensation shall take place when two persons in their own right are creditors and debtors of each other. So first is, compensation is the extinguishment to the concurrent amount of the debts of two persons who in their own right are debtors and creditors of each other. When we say concurrent amount, it basically means that if yung isang debts ay mas malaki kaysa sa isa, then the balance will subsist. Meaning, compensation daw is could be complete or partial. At itong dalawang utang ay may extinguished siya without the actual transfer of money between sa dalawang parties. Article 1280. Notwithstanding the provision of the preceding article, the guarantor may set up compensation as regards what the creditor may owe to the principal debtor. This article talks about the compensation benefits guarantors. Although the guarantor is only subsidiary, di naman siya yung principally bound. So, binibigyan siya ng karapatan to set up compensation. The reason is that yung extinguishment naman ng principal obligation as a consequences carries with it the accessory obligation as a guarantee. So, si guarantor is given the right to set up compensation. Article 1280. Compensation may be total or partial. When the two debts are of the same amount, there is total compensation. In this article, the total compensation results kapag yung dalawang utang is same amount. So, ang ginagawa is kinakompensate na lang nila yung isa't isa para totally ma-extinguish yung obligation. Pero, paano kung yung scenario is hindi same amount? So, compensation is total dun sa mas maliit na amount and partial only with respect to the larger debts.
As for the continuation of the Section 5, so under Article 1284, it talks about the compensation of rescissible or voidable debts. So rescissible and voidable obligations, the same with the contracts, valid sila until annulled or mapawalang bisa. Valid sila until rescinded or voided, then yung compensation is allowed kasi nga during that time, valid pa naman yung status ng debts. Next is Article 1285. It talks about the effects of assignment of compensation of debts. where compensation has taken place before assignment. So, pag yung compensation is nag-effect na dahil sa operation of law or automatically, then yung obligation is extinguished na, while compensation has taken place after assignment. In Article 1285, meron tayong tatlong cases of compensation which take place after an assignment of rights made by creditor. Una is assignment with the consent of debtor. Next is assignment with the knowledge but without the consent of debtor, meaning alam ni debtor pero walang consent. And last is assignment without the knowledge of the debtor. It means walang alam si debtor and wala rin consent niya. First is the assignment with the consent of debtor. In this case, hindi pwede ma-set up yung compensation dahil may waiver ni debtor or may consent niya. Next is assignment with the knowledge but without the consent of debtor. In this case naman, pwede ma-set up yung compensation regarding debts previous to the assignment or yung debts maturing or nag-mature na before the assignment. And lastly, we have the assignment without the knowledge of debtor. In this case, pwede rin ma-set up ni debtor yung compensation as a defense for all debts maturing without his knowledge of the assignment. So whether the debts mature before and after ng assignment, hindi siya magiging factor kasi yung crucial time dito is the time of knowledge of the assignment, hindi yung time of the assignment itself. Let us proceed to Article 1286. Actually, this article applies to legal compensation. So when we say transportation to the place of payment, applicable siya sa pag-transfer ng goods or objects. And when we say indemnity for expenses of exchange, ito naman yung sa monetary exchange if yung debts is all about money or cash. Next is Article 1287. This provision naman, it talks about instances or situations when legal compensation cannot take place. And Article 1287, nagbigay siya ng 4 situation about this. So first is where one of the debts arising from a depositum. So yung word na depositum dito, hindi siya yung magde-deposit sa bangko. It means nag-deposit ka ng isang bagay to another and yung purpose is for safely keeping it and returning it. And under this provision, compensation shall not be proper in this case. Next is if the debts arising from a comodatum. Comodatum means a gratuitous contract kung saan yung isang parties delivers to another something not consumable so that the latter may use the same for a certain time and return it. Next is if the debts arising from a claim for support due by gratuitous title. And last, if the debts consist of civil liability arising from a penal offense. So, wala rin legal compensation dito sa last situation. It is simple as saying that there is no compensation kung yung debt arising from crime dahil civil liability arising from penal offense. Next is Article 1289. So, in this provision, nagbigay ng cross-reference to application of payment. So, yung rules of application of payment is also applicable sa compensation. So, ganito yan. Pag si debtor daw ay maraming debts which are susceptible of compensation, lahat ng debts niya pwedeng magkaroon ng legal compensation. So, si debtor, mamimili siya or i-inform niya si creditor kung alin doon sa mga debts niya ang gagawin niyang object of compensation. And in case he fails to do so, pwede rin si creditor through the receipts. And if wala kay creditor or kay debtor, most onerous rules applies in this situation. Last article in this section is Article 1290. Legal compensation takes place by operation of law. So, compensation occurs automatically by operation of law the moment that all the requisites mentioned in Article 1279. Pag present na silang lahat, so legal compensation takes place kahit absence or walang agreement between the parties. It extinguishes reciprocally both debts and extinguishes both debts to concurrent amount. So, pag sinabing concurrent amount, it means yung isang debt is mas malaki kesa sa isa. So, that means meron siyang balance. And yung balance na yun yung matitira. Magkakaroon pa rin si debtor ng debt dun sa remaining balance na yun. As for the next section is Section 6. It talks about novation. Article 1291. So, this provision talks about novation. And ano nga ba ibig sabihin ng novation? It means substitution or pagbabago ng obligation, resulta ng extinguishment or modification, either by changing its subject or principal conditions, or substituting the person of the debtor, or subrogating a third person in the rights of the creditor. So, unlike doon sa mga naunang discussion about modes of extinguishment of obligation, dito, sa novation, meron siyang dalawang function. First is original obligation is extinguished. Kaya siya nandito sa extinguishment of obligation kasi yung original obligation is na-extinguish. And second function is the creation of new obligation. So, ano-ano nga ba yung kinds of novation? First, they are classified according to origin, meron din according to how it is constituted, pwede rin siyang according to the extent or effect, and lastly, according to the subject. First is according to the origin. It classified by legal and conventional. So when we say legal, according to the operation of law, and pag conventional naman by agreement of the parties. Next is how it is constituted. Una is express. Pag meron express declaration na magkakaroon ng novation, and implied pag hindi stated na may novation. Next, according to the extent or effect, pwede siyang total or partial modification lang. And last, according to the subject. Under this, meron tayong real or objective. In this case, merong pagbabago sa object or principal conditions. Next is personal or subjective. Either si debtor and creditor ang mapapalitan. And last is mix. Pag sinabing mix, yung object and principal condition ng obligation, pati yung debtor at creditor is napalitan. So basically, mix siya ng objective and subjective. Next naman is Article 1292. This provision naman talks about express or implied novation. In this provision, when we say express, it be so declared in unequivocal terms. It means that the new obligations expressly declares na yung old obligation ay ma-extinguish and magkakaroon ng bagong obligation. Let us proceed to implied. Under this provision, pag daw yung old and new obligations be on every point incompatible with each other. On other words, implied novation is done by making substantial changes either sa object or sa subject matter. So example dito is yung obligation before conditional siya, and then later on tinanggal na yung condition, naging absolute na siya. Na magbabayad siya ng halimbawa ng 1 million pesos. In that sense, although hindi expressly but impliedly, nagkaroon ng pagbabago or novation kasi both obligation na may condition at yung walang condition are incompatible with each other. So dito na pumapasok yung test of incompatibility between two obligations or contracts. Next article is 1293. In this provision, it discusses about passive personal or subjective novation. Passive kasi sa part or point of view ni debtor to. Actually, mayroong dalawang kinds ng personal or subjective novation. Pag change of debtor, meaning passive, that is substitution, and pag change of creditor, meaning active, so subrogation naman siya. Next is delegation. It means nagbago ang debtor, pero yung initiative comes from the debtor himself. Si debtor ang nagdelegate sa ibang tao na bayaran yung obligation niya and excuses himself. In return, dahil nag-introduce siya ng ibang tao to pay his obligation, he will be released from the obligation to pay or to fulfill that obligation. So as same sa expromission, dapat yung original or old debtor ay ma-release from his obligations. Pag hindi, walang delegasyon or walang novation na mangyayari. And dito, kay delegasyon, meron tayong three parties. Si old debtor, si new debtor, and creditor. Between these three parties, dapat present ang agreement. So in this article, yung consent ni creditor is necessary, kahit against the will ni debtor. Next is Article 1294. This provision talks about the effect of insolvency or non-fulfillment by the new debtor in expromission. Expromission siya kasi yung substitution is without the knowledge or against the will of the debtor. So ano nga bang effect ng insolvency ni new debtor? According in this article, the new debtor's insolvency or non-fulfillment of the obligation will not revive the action of the creditor against kay old debtor. Kasi si old debtor ay na-release na sa kanyang obligation. So kung yung new debtor is walang kakayanang magbayad kay creditor, wala nang karapatan si creditor na maningil kay old debtor. Next is Article 1295 naman. In this provision, it talks about the effects of insolvency of new debtor in delegation. Yung first thing na mapapansin natin dito sa provision na to, it only deals with insolvency. Unlike dun sa previous article which is Article 1294, it deals with insolvency and non-fulfillment. These provisions provides a requisites in order to hold the old debtor liable. Kasi nga sabi, the insolvency of the new debtor who has been proposed by old debtor and accepted by the creditor, it shall not revive the action of the latter against the original obligor.
For the continuation of the discussion in Section 6 that tackles about novation, let's take a recap muna about the meaning of novation. Novation nga is the total or the partial extinction of the obligation that arise with the creation of new one which substitute the principal obligation. In Article 1286, it stated when the principal obligation is extinguished in consequence of novation, accessory obligation may subsist only insofar as they may benefit the third person who did not give their consent. Sa Article 1286 nga, It provides the exemption to the general rule, which is the extinguishment of the principal obligations, at nagkikerry ito sa accessory obligation. Dito sa nasabing exception, sa accessory obligation, it created lang the benefit for the third persons which remains nga valid except when the third person gave his consent para hindi magkaroon ng notion or the prejudice by the act na rin na maikocommit ng the said person without his consent. For more understanding nga, I give this example sa Article 1296. Percy owes Toti 2,000 peso with the interest of 14%. And then, si Toti naman, meron siyang utang kay Pam na 280. It was agreed nga among the parties na si Percy would pay the interest of 280 to Pam in the case na besides sa principal obligation ni ni Percy, there is a stipulation na it favors to Pam a third person. Later on, si Percy at Toti nag-execute sila ng bagong contract or another contract whereby they agreed that Percy will deliver Toti a television set in payment of the loan. In spite naman sa novation, the accessory obligation to pay the interest of 280 to Pam still subsists unless na lang si Pam magbibigay siya ng consent dun sa novation. Sa Article 1297 naman, if the new obligation is void, the original one shall subsist unless the parties intended that the former relation should be extinguished in any event. This article lang naman, it talks about lang sa general rule, which is yung original obligation will subsist if the new obligation is void. Tapos, the reason behind it is that if the new obligation is in existence, which means lang na it cannot modify or extinguish the first obligation. Next naman is the effect where the new obligation is void. The new obligation must be valid. Sa general rule nga natin, if the new obligation is void, therefore, yung original one will subsist for the reason that the second obligation is being nga talagang in existence or it cannot extinguish yung or ma-modify yung the first obligation. Yung effect naman where the new obligation is voidable, na if the obligation is voidable, novation can take place. When the moment that there is annulled, the novation must be considered as not having taken place nga. Tapos yung original one can be enforced unless na lang na there is a intention of the parties na i-continue pa rin yung mga commitments nila. Next article is Article 1298. In 1298, the novation is void if the original obligation was void, except when the annulment may be claimed only by the debtor or when ratification validates acts which are voidable. This article states lang na yung old obligation is void, then there is nothing to novate, which mean that there will be no new obligation since void obligation nga hindi nag-e-exist and hindi siya subject to ratification. However na lang, if there's a case where the obligation is only voidable, then magkakaroon ng new obligation which is valid and binding upon the parties until there will be annulled in the court or if it's validated by the ratification, meaning magkakaroon ng validation yung novation. Next article is Article 1299. In 1299, if the original obligation was subject to a suspensive or resolutory condition, the new obligation shall be under the same condition unless it is otherwise stipulated. In Article 1299 nga, it states that yung new obligation is deemed siya to subject with the condition of the old obligation that's subject to suspensive or resolutory condition. Yung old obligation nga is extinguished for the creation of the new obligation in a case where the new obligation cannot be arise na until the condition in the original obligation has been fulfilled. Meaning, when the old obligation is suspensive and it is not complied with, then there will be no obligation that will arises. If naman, when the old obligation is resolutory and it is complied with, may chances na it will be extinguished and the old obligation will be void the new obligation. Furthermore naman, sa the original obligation, it could be conditional. Its efficacy will depend na lang upon whether the condition might affect the old one if it's complied or not. But the parties may be expressed naman to novate or substitute a pure obligation for a conditional one. In Article 1300, subrogation of a third person in the rights of the creditor is either legal or conventional. The former is not presumed except in cases expressly mentioned in this case or in this code. The latter must be clearly established in order that it may be take effect. Sa article na to, it speaks about the subrogation. Yung subrogation nga, it is the subjective novation that is or identified to transfer to the third person all the rights pertaining to the creditor in the transaction being concerned. Tapos, it transferred then all the credit arising from the creditor transaction, past or present transaction, all to the third person, including all the rights to employ all the remedies to enforce payment against the debtor nga. And then, may two kinds of subrogation, which is the conventional at legal. First muna natin yung legal subrogation. In legal subrogation, it takes place naman without any agreement by the parties but by the operation of the law. It presumes except in cases expressly provided ng law that it will be elaborated nga in Article 1302. Next one is the conventional subrogation. Yung conventional subrogation naman, it take place naman siya when the original parties and the third person, which is the new creditor, expressly agreed, and then it must be clearly established with sufficient evidence or else yung existence nga nito will not be sustained. Next article would be Article 1301. Article 1301, conventional subrogation of a third person requires the consent of the original parties and the third person. In Article 1301 nga, it stated that the conventional subrogation needs the consent of the original parties. As well na rin yung third persons. Because if there is a lack of consent, yung subrogation, hindi magkakaroon siya ng effect because nga, yung essential requirement ng law is yung consent. Yung consent of all the parties involved in the conventional subrogation, it becomes talaga necessary because ito yung in-establish ng law, which includes the debtor, the old creditor, and the third person. The debtor, kasi, it becomes liable na rin under the new obligation to the new creditor. And the obligation to the old creditor will be extinguished na. Tapos, yung old creditor, because of his credit, is affected and his rights, magkakaroon siya ng yung right niya to demand sa obligation which will be extinguished na rin. Tapos, lastly, sa third person, yung new creditor, kasi siya yung magiging bagong party sa obligation. Dito sa Article 1302, pinipresume niya lang that there is a legal subrogation if, as it is nga siya dito sa reading material, number 1 nga, when a creditor pays another creditor who is prepared, even without the debtor's knowledge. Number 2, when a third person not interested in the obligation pays with the express or tacit approval of the debtor. Number 3, when even without the knowledge of the debtor, a person interested in the fulfillment of the obligation pays without a prejudice to the effect of the confusion as to the latter share. Next one is Article 1303. In Article 1303, subrogation transferred to the person subrogated the credit with all the rights thereto appertaining either against the debtor or against the third person may be the guarantors or possessors of the mortgagee subject to the stipulation in a conventional subrogation. In Article 1303 nga, halos pareho lang sila ng 1302. Yung number 1 doon. Lahat ng rights na meron yung creditor ay malilipat sa kung sino mang tao yung nag-fulfill ng obligation. Tapos, yung effect ng legal subrogation is, yung legal subrogation ay matatransfer lang yung rights na meron yung dating creditor sa mga bagong creditor against sa debtor or kahit sa third person. Ibig sabihin lang, yung legal subrogation na sinasabi sa 1303 ay hindi ma-define or mare-refer sa agreement ng both parties. At yung effect naman ng conventional subrogation ay between yun sa stipulation ng both parties at hindi ng batas. For the last article nga, Article 1304, a creditor to whom partial payment has been made may exercise his right for the remainder and he shall be preferred to the person who has been subrogated in his place in virtue of the partial payment of the same credit. Sa Article 1304 nga, it talks about lang sa effect of partial subrogation. If ever yung third person yung nagbayad ng utang sa utang ng debtor, pero partial lang, si creditor pwede niya pa rin singilin yung balance or natitirang utang ni debtor. Ibig sabihin, kahit na may third person na involved, as long as hindi pa fully paid or bayad yung utang sa kanya, si creditor pa rin, sa kanya, creditor pa rin siya, and si creditor pwede niyang i-subrogate kay third person yung partial payment na hindi pa binayaran nun. Tapos yung effect of partial subrogation, yung creditor, it remains pa rin na creditor as long as hindi pa fully paid or bayad yung utang sa kanya. If ever maging insolvent naman si debtor, merong rights yung creditor na yon na ma-recover yung balance na utang dun sa bagong creditor or sa bagong third person or dun sa bagong subrogate.